Welcome to the SF State Abroad Information Meeting. I'm your Study Abroad Advisor, Janelle Waldrop. And today we're going to talk about in this meeting three basic things. I want to first begin with that pesky word study in front of study abroad. How does that work at San Francisco State? How do you find a program that's going to help you maintain degree progress? And then just how to do that initial research. Then we're going to switch gears and talk about what I call the fun research. You don't take my word for it. These are amazing, great programs, but we have a whole network of study abroad alumni and international students that you can talk to and get their perspective. So whether you're on campus or virtual, we have opportunities for you to reach out to them. And then finally, we'll switch gears and talk about what comes after this meeting. Sadly, not run to the airport, few steps in between to get yourself overseas. So like I said, I like to start kind of big picture with the word study in front of study abroad, because like I said, if you Google the word study abroad, you're going to get thousands of hits. This seems like there's a study abroad program in every university in higher education, but how it's run and what it looks like is actually very different from campus to campus. San Francisco State is unique in our approach in that we exclusively focus on exchange-based programs. What that means for you fundamentally is three things. If you remember nothing else, I hope you remember of these three basic facts about our programs. First and foremost, you're going to pay the same tuition. You pay tuition to San Francisco State, an international student does the same thing in their home institution, and then you switch places, hence the idea of the exchange. So the biggest cost difference comes down to cost of living. San Francisco is horrifyingly expensive. When students go abroad, they're like, wait a second, not everyone pays these high rents. In fact, in some locations, I could save money and even have my own room. So because you're paying the same tuition and housing is so much lower, even with airfare, visa costs, etc., most programs come out to be the same or even cheaper than a semester or year at San Francisco State. Of course, there are exceptions. If you have your heart set on London, Paris, Tokyo, Copenhagen, those are also expensive cities, but for the vast majority of the programs, because cost of living is so much lower elsewhere, you're going to find that you're going to pay similar or even a cheaper cost for studying abroad than staying at San Francisco State. The second thing we want you to know is that financial aid goes with you. If you depend upon financial aid now, you can depend upon financial aid. All of your aid except for work study goes with you. Sadly, work study is tied to the campus. So if I look at Mexico or Canada, I can't reasonably commute back to SF State on a weekly basis. So I do have to give that up. But otherwise, all of my aid can go with me. It can cover my airplane tickets, my visa costs, my housing deposits, everything it takes to establish me in that country for a semester a year, I can depend upon just like I am at San Francisco State. So these are the two financial things that we really want you to know about the programs. For more information on budgeting, do check out our website. There's a series of budgeting videos that will guide you through the process of putting together a budget for any program. And this can be found under the Preparing to Study Abroad dropdown at the top of our website. But the third thing I want to discuss today goes back to that pesky word study in front of study abroad, the coursework. The classes that you take abroad are SF State credit, not transfer credit. They're going to come back and they're going to be SF State credit. They're going to appear on your transcript just like you took these classes at San Francisco State. So you have to take these classes anyway. Why not take them in another country? As lovely as San Francisco is, it's not the same as, being in Europe and say, jump on the train this weekend and go to Berlin or Paris. Where are you going to go here? Stockton, Sacramento? I mean, they're lovely, but they're not Paris or Berlin. So what are you doing here? Let's get you out of the country so you can be traveling around on the weekend and be making degree progress, and sometimes even better degree progress. I say better degree progress because it can be hard to get classes at San Francisco State. It's competitive. However, when you study abroad, that's not true at the vast majority of our partner universities. A lot of times you get a better priority registration and there's just simply not that competition for classes. So that it can actually be academically better to study abroad to maintain or even improve your degree progress. So that's one reason, something that we really want you to be aware of as you're considering different study abroad programs. So these three things are true for all the programs. So then how do I narrow down a program choice? Because we have programs in 36 countries. For fun, I like to point out we're on 6 of the 7 continents, every continent but Antarctica. Sorry, too cold, no universities there. Cross that one off your list. But otherwise, we got all the other continents covered. So how do I choose? Again, back to that pesky word study in front of study abroad. It really depends upon academically, what do you want to accomplish? And that might be one of 3 academic goals. You could go abroad for your major or your minor. Every major except for pre-nursing, and always reach out to study abroad advisor if you're pre-nursing, but every other major has at least one option, if not more, in English that you can be making degree progress towards your major. So definitely consider go abroad for your major. Sometimes students go, okay, those are interesting, but I was really hoping for a different location, so then I might look where I can go for my minor. Other students have declared a minor just for study abroad. I really want to be in Asia, so that Pacific Asian Studies minor is starting to sound really tempting. Or the European Studies minor, or Latin American Studies minor. Sorry, no Australian Studies minor, but you get the point. Different minors or majors can open up different locations. So always a good idea to check out where you can go for your major, your minor. You can also go abroad for GEs. This will give you additional locations to be looking at, regardless of whether you're still working on your lower or upper division GEs. You could be pursuing that for study abroad. If you're still working on your upper division GEs, that's 9 units. So 3 classes, just add one more, you're a full-time study abroad student, and you could be saving all your upper division GEs to study abroad for a semester. Or if you're a freshman now and you want to go abroad sophomore year to do your lower division GEs, that's absolutely possible. You could be looking at a GE program there. There's a lot of possibilities. However, there are some things that I do recommend maybe thinking about taking at San Francisco State. So for example, it can be possible to do Area E, but it's hard to do it abroad. So maybe take Area E at SF State. D2 and D3, it depends. So US history, it can actually be done in the UK fairly easily. But if you're not interested in the UK, maybe take US history at San Francisco State. California government, though, is one that you really just have to take at San Francisco State. I know you're surprised that no one in the world teaches California government, so just plan on taking that here. And then for Area A, again, that's very easy to do in the UK, maybe a few other locations, but not everywhere. So you might work on Area A. And those are just a few tips to start thinking about. For more help about that, definitely sign in for advising and talk to a study abroad advisor. The third category is language. You don't have to major or minor in a language to pursue that for study abroad. Maybe you have personal or professional reasons. Personally, maybe I just really want to learn Korean or Italian, or professionally get a job in California. I might need to have Mandarin, Cantonese, or Spanish to really be competitive in the job market. Those are legitimate academic goals that you could be pursuing for study abroad. So I want you to think about these 3 areas, and in your mind, pick one to start your research. Sometimes you can overlap, but not always. So it's good to start with one. So for example, if I'm doing a Learn Spanish program, I can very easily do my humanities and social science upper and lower division GEs, but I'm not going to find the other GEs, and I'm not going to be necessarily doing my major or my minor coursework. And same thing, some major and minor coursework programs allow you to do GEs in language, but some of them don't. So that's why I say start with one to begin your research. When you're ready to begin your research, a great place to start is, of course, our website. If you haven't been here, studyabroad.sfsu.edu is an excellent place to begin. I personally like to start with looking at the preparing to study abroad, which I mentioned already. There's this great drop-down list here of options of things that you can be looking at, like the budget workshop that I mentioned a moment ago. The getting started is really helpful, lays out step by step what to do through the process. So definitely check out this section of the website for these resources. For today, I also want to point out the search programs button. This will take you to the SF State Abroad database. Quick caveat, it's called the SF State Abroad database, but it's also known as Horizons. Horizons is simply the software that runs it, so don't be surprised if someone from the Study Abroad office refers to it as Horizons. whichever you want to call it, this is where we want you to begin your research. I personally like to start with field of study. There's a drop-down list here. I can search major, minor, GEs, or learn language. When you're first looking at the database, I do recommend leaving everything else blank. Sometimes horizons can be a little quirky, and it might eliminate something I don't think it should for you. So let's just start there. Before we get into that process too much, I want to go over a couple things that cause a little bit of confusion when looking at the database. The first question I always get from students who've seen the database is, wait, there are two types of study abroad programs. So earlier I said all the programs are exchange programs. They all are. All of our exchange programs are called SF State Abroad. And under this large umbrella of SF State Abroad, there are two types of exchange programs. They're what we call the San Francisco State Exchange programs, which is a one-to-one agreement between us and another university. And we also have exchange programs through the California State University International Programs, or CSUIP, or simply IP programs. These are simply exchange programs available to all 23 CSU campuses. So if you're best friends at Sonoma State or another CSU and you want to do the same program, then you might prefer this option. But everything I've said so far equally applies to both. I would really recommend looking at them together holistically, because this is how we serve all of the academic goals for you and can help you make progress towards your degree at San Francisco State. If you're curious of what this looks like on the database, here's a random sample of programs. We're just going to pay attention to this column on the far left-hand side, and it says provider. We see, okay, the first three programs here are SF State Exchange. The bottom four are CSUIP programs. Again, it doesn't really matter, especially at this stage, but if you are interested, here is the difference. The second thing I want you to be aware of is term. So this is an older screenshot, and that's okay. We're not going to go over all the terms, but I want to go over a couple ones that cause a little confusion. I frequently get asked, what is the difference between academic year and calendar year? Both are year, but the difference is your first semester abroad. So if I go abroad academic year, I'm going abroad fall and spring. But if I go abroad calendar year, I'm going abroad for a year, but my first semester will be in the spring semester. I'm going abroad spring and fall semester. Essentially, I'm following the calendar. This is very popular for countries that are in the southern hemisphere, like Chile, because everything is reversed. So if I want to go to Chile at the beginning of their school year, I will go abroad calendar year, because spring semester for them is actually semester number 1. Come July, they go on winter break, then they come back for their second semester, our fall semester. By November, they're on summer vacation, which means I can hang out in Chile or go over to Argentina or come back to SF State, and I just have a nice extra long break before the start of classes at San Francisco State in the following spring. You can also do calendar year in the Northern Hemisphere or countries modeled after the British system, like Hong Kong, where I go calendar year, semester 2 for them, spring semester. Then I have summer off, backpack through Asia. Sounds like a great idea to me. And then I'm going back into their fall semester, semester 1 for them. Then I come back to SF State and I'm right in sync with SF State's schedule. So it's just something to be mindful of. The other thing you want to be mindful of is that, is the program available the term you want to go? Because you'll notice that not every program is available every single term. Frequently, this is for logistical reasons. So for example, you might notice that a few programs are available academic year and spring semester. Oh, so a semester is possible, but only in the spring semester. That is because some of our partner universities, their fall semester just doesn't align with our school year's calendar. For example, in Italy and Germany, their fall semester often runs from October to the end of February. Well, that's great, but that means you won't finish the fall semester until early March, and SF State begins our spring semester at the end of January. So it just doesn't work to come back to SF State after one semester. You will also notice that a couple programs are available only for the academic year, frequently in the UK. That's because some of our UK partners have year-long classes. Brunel and Kingston are excellent examples of this, where those universities have a lot of year-long classes, and so they would struggle to even give you a transcript with a passing grade if you left after one semester in the fall, because you haven't taken any of the final exams. You're essentially failing out of the program because you don't have any grades yet, so it doesn't really work to do them for only one semester. So that's just a few things I want you to be aware of when you are looking at term. Just check to make sure it's available the term you want to be pursuing for study abroad. The other thing I want to clarify on the database is language of instruction. Don't worry, 80% of our programs are in English. You can go abroad for your major, minor, GEs, and all be done in English. But maybe you're not satisfied with that. Maybe you actually want to learn or improve another language. Then you might look at what we call Learn Language or Language and Culture programs in the database. These are great ways to learn another language. If you are interested in one of these programs, do look sooner than later to see if it requires a semester or not of the language. About half of them do require one semester of the language prior, the other half do not. And you want to know that sooner than later, because maybe I need to add a class at San Francisco State or take it at a community college. Community college courses equally count to SF State courses in terms of study abroad prerequisites. If you took a language class in high school and you did the AP exam and you got a 4 or 5, that counts as one semester of college level language. If you didn't take the AP exam, or you think you know more than one semester, or you just know the language for any reason, then you might reach out to the foreign language department and do a language placement exam. I do recommend doing that sooner than later, just so you can schedule with their schedule. So once you know if you meet the qualifications, because qualifications have to be completed the spring or fall semester prior to departure, although sometimes for the language prerequisites, you need to show that you're either taking the class or you've taken the exam by the deadline so they know if you qualify. I do really recommend looking into these programs if you're at all interested in learning or improving a language, because in my opinion, this is the best way to learn or improve a language. I've taken a lot of language classes, 1 hour, 4 or 5 days a week. It's helpful, but the second I'm outside the classroom, it just falls right out of my head because I go back to speaking English really quickly. But if you're abroad, it's different. I've had so many students tell me that they go abroad, they take the language class, and the second they're outside the classroom door, it's suddenly an adventure and they're using the language that they just learned in class, and it gets reinforced in their mind in a way that simply cannot be replicated here. I have lots of students who especially do the Learn French program who love going after class to the open air markets, buying their daily fresh baguette and using that French. To give you an example, someone who did the Learn French program in Aix-en-Provence in the south of France had only a semester or 2 of French prior. At the end of his year in Aix, his French was high enough he was able to study abroad for a second year in Paris, taking his major coursework in French. There's no way after a year of any language at San Francisco State that your language skills would be high enough that you could start taking classes in another language, but you can on a Learn Language program. So again, if this is something you're interested in, I highly recommend it. I do, though, personally consider it an investment because to get your language skills up to a high enough level, you're taking a lot of language classes. You may have to take a break from your major and some of the GEs, although you can do the humanities and social science GEs on these programs. If you already have advanced language skills, which we qualify as 4 semesters of college level or more, then you could do an advanced language program where you can take all your major, minor G classes in another language. And you could get, while you might slow down a little bit on the Learn Language programs, you can make rapid progress over here. You can get classes double or even triple counted. To use the same example of the student who did the second year in Paris, he was a history major. He started his history class in French, and he was able to get 1 class signed off by the history department, French program, and accounted for his upper division social science GE because history is a social science at San Francisco State. So if this is something you're interested in, I do highly recommend it because, like I said, you can get things double or even triple counted. It does require 4 semesters of language, which you can take at San Francisco State, community college, a placement exam, or do what that person I was just talking about, do the Learn Language program and do the advanced program. SF State students may study abroad up to 4 semesters or 2 years at San Francisco State. To give you an idea of what this looks like in the database, again, a random sample of programs, but this time we're going to pay attention to the language column. The first program on this list here is a business school in Denmark, Aarhus School of Business. So while English is not the local language there, I can see very clearly that if I'm a business major, I would be able to take my business classes in English. So it is that first category. If we go to the fourth program down, we're looking at Yamagata University in Japan. And here, then we can see two languages, English and Japanese. If that's the case, it might be the second category. I'd say about 85% of the time, it is the second category, a learned language. Frequently requiring one semester, but not always, although this program does require 2 semesters of Japanese. I'll spend my time learning Japanese or improving my Japanese. However, I say 85% of the time. There is still that 15% of time where it might not be, where there are programs with an English or another language track. Korea is a great example. All the Korea programs have an English track, a Learn Korean track, or an Advanced Korean track. You will also notice that Hong Kong has an English and Cantonese track for specific majors. Carlos III in Spain also has an English and Spanish track for specific majors. WHU, a business school in Germany, also has an English and German track for specific majors. You don't always have to have the language, and you can go and take classes in English. So it doesn't hurt to click on that, but don't be surprised if frequently comes up a learn language program. Going 2 more down to Beijing, now we see Chinese. If we see a language that's not English, this means it's that third category where I have to have 4 semesters or more, and I'm spending my time taking my major, minor, GE classes in that language. I tell you this because I want you, again, start with field of study only, leave everything else blank, and see what comes up. Realistically, you're going to get way more programs than I expect you to do research on. At that point, you'll be able to eliminate a few based on maybe language or term, etc. But I want you to pick 3 that interest you for any reason. I typically recommend, when you're narrowing it down, to think more regional or geographic instead of a country, because it is so easy and cheap to travel once you're in that region. So do you want to be traveling around Europe, Asia, Latin America, Oceania? Think about those regions and then start looking for programs within that. Because again, maybe you have your heart set on Italy, but there's a really great, program in Switzerland or France, the French-Italian border, and you can be hopping over there every weekend if you wanted to, and it's really cheap. So think about those. For any program that you're interested in, I want you to do 2 things. 1, check requirements. 2, look at courses abroad. Let's first talk about requirements. All programs have 2, sometimes 3 basic requirements. The first one is class standing. The soonest you can go abroad is a sophomore. So if you're a freshman right now, you can and should be applying for a sophomore program. Sophomore programs will let you go abroad with only 24 units. So if I took 12 units last semester, 12 units this semester, I qualify. And as a sophomore abroad, I can be doing a learned language program or lower division GE programs. So definitely something to be thinking about. If I go abroad as a junior or senior, if I'm already at junior standing, great. If I'm not, then again, it's down to 55 units. So if by the end of the fall or spring semester prior to departure, I have 55 units, then I qualify. You'll notice I'm purposely not saying over the summer. So as a junior or senior, I can do all the academic goals, major, minor, GEs, learn language. If you're unsure about the units in a program, feel free to email studyabroad.sfsu.edu and just let me know what program you're interested in, how many units you'll have, and I'll let you know if that program has flexibility or if they're more rigid, and we can go from there. All programs also have a GPA requirement. This is a cumulative or overall GPA. So if you're not sure what your overall GPA is, look at your unofficial transcript in Gateway. At the bottom, it says SF State GPA, overall GPA. Most programs, it's a 2.75. There are a number of programs that are 3.0, frequently in Europe, and there are programs that are higher, and there are programs that are lower. If you meet it, it's a check mark, move on. If you don't, this time I'd like you to sign in for advising, one-on-one advising with an advisor, so we can discuss more about your background, your academic goals, which programs you're looking at, and go from there. Because again, some programs are flexible, some programs are rigid, and unlike units, GPA is more than a number. We want context. We want to know your story, what's going on, and help guide you from there. So like I said, these 2 things are always true, but some programs also have course prerequisites. It's a very good idea to check this out sooner than later, so you know, do I need to add any classes or, plan according based on when I would go, because I do need to finish study abroad prerequisites the fall or spring semester prior to departure. not over the summer. So you just want to start planning that sooner than later. This is, more common on the Learn Language program. However, there are a few major programs that also have course prerequisites. The most common one would be for journalism majors. All journalism majors must take the GWAR class before going abroad. That's a Department of Journalism requirement, which is also noted on all those programs where it's applicable. So just check this sooner than later to go forward. What I'd like to do now is give you two examples of what this looks like in action. First, I'm going to give you an SF State Exchange Program example, then a CSUIP example. The reason for that is while there's not a lot of difference between the programs, there is a little bit difference when it comes to the research. So for an SF State Exchange Program, we're going to look at Mahidol University in Thailand as my example. Let's say we did a search for upper division GE programs. This program would have come up, but I do personally like to look at field of study when I'm looking at the program page. The reason for this is it'll tell me everything that's possible here. So sometimes students will ask, can I do my major and my minor in the same location? If they're both listed here, then the answer is likely yes. If they're not, then the answer is definitely no. It is always possible that the university teaches things that are not on here. If that is the case, that just means that it's not part of our agreement and it's not possible. So like I said, that's why I like to look here to see what is the range of possibilities. I said it's most of the time possible. There is some exceptions like the UK. The University of Birmingham, for example, allows you to do a major or minor as long as they're in the same college. That is noted on that particular program page down below. Let's just say we're happy with this and we'll keep moving forward. And so first, like I said, check requirements, then look at courses. So program requirements can be found here. This program is open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. 2.75 GPA, though lower upon special circumstances. Good. There have been flexibility in the past. I'll still talk to an advisor if I'm below, but nice to know there's flexibility. No course prerequisites. If there was a course prerequisite requirement, it would be noted in this section. So if I'm happy, I'll move on. If not, I'll back out to the database and look at a different program. If I'm moving forward, then the next step is to look at the course section above here. Most programs, this hyperlink in blue will say course listings, but for Mahidol, because they have their catalogs, it'll say catalogs. Where this link is taking you is different for every program because it's taking you directly to the partner university's website. My advice is before you click on this, think about, am I doing my major, minor, Gs, or learn language? If I'm doing my major or my minor, am I trying to find cores or elective classes? Cores are things that, these are classes that everyone has to take for the major. The course titles don't have to match to the partner university abroad, but the description should. So if you're not sure what the description of the SF State course is, you might look at the SF State bulletin, and then you will compare that to the description you find abroad. If you think it aligns, great, make a list. Most departments only require about a 60 or 70% alignment. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're just making a list of possibilities. For electives, they're great because they don't have to match at all. They just have to be in your field of study. So if you are an international relations major, any international relations class abroad could potentially be approved as an elective for your major. So you just have to find classes in your major that you find interesting and make a list of those as potential electives. For GEs, the Undergrad Advising Center really cares about their categories. To find out what their categories are, look at the SF State bulletin. You're not matching classes. That's the great thing. You're just looking at categories. So for categories, what departments are attached to each category? So for a social science upper division GE, I will notice that most of the classes that are listed are history, political science, and international relations. So those are my big categories that I'm looking for. So any history, political science, international relations class I find abroad potentially could be counted as my upper division social science GE. So I just want you to know that as you begin to look at their classes abroad, because they're going to be listed and categorized differently. Frequently, you will find that you won't be able to just find a list of classes, although Mahidol does have just a list of classes, which is super helpful. But a lot of times you're going to find that things are decentralized. That to find courses for my major, I'm going to have to go specifically to that department's website there and look at their structure of their degree and go from there. Or from doing GEs, I might have to look at multiple department websites. If you struggle with this at all, please feel free to sign in for advising. we just ask that you first look at their system, try to find some classes that you think match up, and make a list. We'll come back what to do with the list later, but for now, just make a list and set it to the side. These two things are what I want you to decide if this is a yes, no, or maybe program, the requirements and the courses. There's a lot more information on this program page, such as housing, etc., that I'm not going to go into today, but I do encourage you to read over the rest of the program page when you get a chance. But for now, we're going to pause and switch gears and talk about my CSUIP example. For my CSUIP example, we're going to look at the Learn French program. Like I said, these programs are sometimes called Learn Language or Language and Culture. When you're looking at Learn Language program, field of study becomes irrelevant. Any major can do a Learn Language program because your goal is to learn the language. So we'll skip over that. And we'll look at program requirements. Starts the same, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, still 2.75. But now there's a course prerequisite, 1 semester of French. Okay, good to know. So far, that's exactly the same. The difference for a CSUIP program is going to be under course information, where it tells you to go to the CSUIP website, and it tells you to look at the CSUIP academic bulletin. And under eligibility, it also says, be sure to check out IP's website if you didn't notice it earlier, because these programs are open to all 23 CSU campuses, and therefore they're managed by the Chancellor's Office. They have their own database. We are not completely duplicating everything on their database, so you do need to get to their website sooner than later. So these links will take you to the CSUIP database. This is just format a little bit different. You see a list of all their programs. You scroll down to find the one you're looking at, in this case, the French Language and Culture program. We purposely have it titled that way so it will match, so you'll easily be able to find it on their database. And then you're just going to check things once more. So this is their database. It looks slightly different. So I'm going to start with looking at deadlines and requirements. And yep, the requirements match exactly as they should, and 99% of the time they will. If there's any discrepancy between the two program types, always go with CSUIP's website, because this is their program. They have final say on their programs. Then I'm going to look for course information, and I'll do that under academic information. Click on there. While it's super tempting to click on the course catalog, I really do want you to start with the academic bulletin first. The academic bulletin is going to tell me structural things. It'll tell me how units compare, how grades compare between the two systems. They'll also tell me how to navigate their system. Are there any terminology differences? Where do I go? How do I find classes? This is really helpful even for English-speaking countries. I have to say, students frequently think they don't need to do this for English-speaking countries like the UK and Australia, and they get frustrated because in the UK there is a word for course, but the word course means more like major or field of study. If I want to find classes, I have to look for the word modules. In New Zealand, I have to look for the word papers. And it just saves you a lot of time and headache if you look at this site first and find that page and find those terminology. It will also tell you what numbers are upper and lower division in that system. That's also very important, because it is entirely possible you might go abroad and take a year 1 class, and that class might actually be signed off as upper division at San Francisco State. So it's not always very clear what is upper and lower division. That's why I do want you to look here. The final reason I want you to look here is to see, are there any required classes while I'm abroad? The vast majority of programs do not have any required classes while you're abroad. However, a few of them, most likely on the Learn Language programs, do have some required classes you must take while you're there. On this particular program, they do have a 1-week intensive French program, but it's only for 1 unit. And then during the academic year, you do have to take a 1-unit workshop. Probably those 2 units is not going to break your unit budget, but it's something I do want you to know sooner than later. Oh, okay, 2 of my units are going to go to those things. I can only pick from the rest of them, and there is a bit of a structure here to what I'm looking at. And so that's, again, why it's a really good idea to look at the academic bulletin sooner than later as you're doing your academic planning. All right, so I want to pause here for a second because I threw a lot of information at you. Again, pick 3 programs that interest you based upon academic goals for any reason, then check requirements, look at courses abroad. And I've showed you how to do it for both SF State Exchange and CSUIP programs. This is going to help you decide if this is a yes, no, or maybe program. There's a lot more information on all these sites that I do want you to encourage to look through, but for now, we're going to pause and shift gears and talk about what I call the fun research. As your advisor, I'm super knowledgeable of structure, requirements, but I may not be the best person to ask, should I live on campus or off campus? I can tell you the options and exactly how to find that information, but you might want to ask someone who's actually studied there or someone who's from that university. They have the best insider perspective because they've lived there, they've taken classes at that location, and they're doing the same thing at San Francisco State. So there's a variety of ways to do that. The best way is through the Study Abroad Club, known as IEEC, or the International Education Exchange Council. This is the largest student organization at San Francisco State, comprised of students like yourself who are interested in study abroad alumni, and all of our incoming exchange students. So where we're sending, we're receiving students. So you can ask someone who's from that location you want to go about that experience. A great way to start learning about the organization and getting information virtually is through the Instagram page. You can follow them at SFSU.EDU or join the current Facebook group IEEC Spring 2022. And this will be where they're going to post a lot of their information, but do join these groups. You will also have opportunities throughout the semester to stop by the study abroad table and meet people in person if you will be on campus. The IEC will be tabling on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. On our website, you'll be able to scan this QR code and see more details about that. So please do scan that, and you will find out, like, if you're really interested in, like, where are the students from Thailand and when are they going to be at the table. I'll scan that QR code, find that schedule, and I can go when I come to campus. I can stop by at that time and chat with them. I do encourage you, if you have time, if you're on campus and you're between classes, to stop by the table, regardless of what country's there, because you can always ask them travel questions, and they're a really great resource of information. IEC will also be putting on language exchanges. And so this would be a great way to meet international students again and learn a few basic phrases. It will be up to the students whether the meetings will be virtual or in person. Also, definitely scan the QR code to go to our website to find out more details about that. We have a link to all the Facebook pages where they are posting that information. And like I said, great way to meet students. Maybe I want to go to Sweden and I'm going to take everything in English, but I'd still like to meet the Swedish students and learn a couple basic phrases. Hello, how are you? Then I really am having trouble finding them on campus. But if I go to the language exchange, I can meet them because they're just not walking around campus waving the Swedish flag, but they will be in the Swedish language exchange, which we do have. So I do hope you do check those out. It's great preparation and a great way to find the students. You can also read about SF State students' experience on the blog site, studyabroad.com. You can search this by program, by country, and just hear what SF State students have to say about their experience in study abroad. We call this the fun research because we want you to put in your application, I read this on the blog, or I joined the Swedish language exchange, or virtually showed up to these events. And this is what I learned about the program. This is why I know it's a good program for me. So it's fun, but it's also part of your research. I do also encourage you to follow us on Instagram at SF State Abroad. We are going to have some takeovers this semester, and you can see some of the past takeovers on our highlights section up here. Any events that are upcoming, so that we've been posting events. Some of them are recorded, some of them are not. If you see one that you missed, feel free to email studyabroad@sfsu.edu. And if I have the recording, I'll share it. But do check this out and follow us, because this, like I said, you can, when there's Instagram lives or takeovers, you can talk to students in real time virtually about their experience. And you can also see which events are coming up and if there's anything you want to be attending, because a lot of our events are opportunities for you to connect with study abroad alumni and international students. Great, so we're going to shift gears one more time and talk about what comes after this meeting. Not quite ready to go to the airport, but hopefully you will be soon ready to start looking into your options. A great next step is to create an account on the database. This is not applying. So before we were looking on the database at the search programs tab here. So if you click on search programs from our website, it takes you here. Now what I'd like you to do is go next door to the welcome tab, and this will enable you to create an account by clicking on the SF State login. I do really recommend that you click on the SF State login, because this will allow you to log in using your SF State credentials. It saves you time. You don't have to retype a lot of things that SF State already knows, like your major, etc. If you don't have an SF State ID number, then and only then log in using SF State student registration. Please select that you are a current student and just put your ID number as all zeros. But otherwise, if you do have an ID, please use the SF State login up here. If you already created a registration down here, it's not a problem. Just be consistent in the way that you log into the database, because this might create 2 accounts for you and cause a little bit of problem in the database. When you are logged into the database, you will see new things that you couldn't see before, including the hidden scholarship database. I know it's tempting to wait till you apply, see if you get in. By that time, you've missed some of the biggest and the best scholarships. Scholarships are coming due throughout the semester, so it's a good idea sooner than later to start making a list of potential scholarships and noting their deadlines. This is just a resource, guys. This is not how you apply for any scholarship. It's just helping you sort and find scholarships, especially the scholarship type here, because you can search by need based on your financial aid status. You can search by merit, service, if you're going to give back to an organization. So this can be really helpful to help you search through and find a scholarship that's great for you. There's also a scholarship database on our website. Regardless where you look at it, you do start looking at scholarships sooner than later. Like I said before, there is a budget workshop on our website that you can start and have more information about this as well. Getting started, we'll walk through the entire process. Making degree progress will go more in depth to the academic planning than I mentioned. The Connecting to International Students is the links I told you about, the tabling, the language exchange. Application workshop will guide you through the entire application. Right, it is not required to meet with any advisor to apply for study abroad. However, if you want to go abroad for your major or your minor, it's a good idea to check in with your department. Your departments are actually very supportive of study abroad, but they don't remember where you can go, and they don't remember what classes are being offered abroad. So it's a good idea to narrow it down on the database to a couple of your top choice programs. Then I said before, make a list of potential cores and electives. And so then you could ask for a Zoom meeting with your academic advisor, so you can share your screen and say, okay, this is a course I found at Mahidol University, and I think it's going to fill this particular requirement for environmental studies, this core requirement here. And your advisor can go yes or no. And if they say yes, great, make note of that. If they say no, okay, well, what do I need in this class to make it fill that requirement? And they will tell you, oh, it needs X concept, so I can go find a different class or plan on taking that class at San Francisco State. So again, it's just a good idea just to do that initial matching up, but it's not required to meet with an advisor. It just can give you that confidence. If you're going abroad for GEs, the undergrad advising center works the exact opposite. They say they will trade flexibility with meeting with you later. They're very nice about how they count classes, but they want to meet with you after you've been selected. If you have questions about GEs, there is a lot of great information on that Making Degree Progress page I showed you on our website, but you can also sign in for study abroad advising and talk with an advisor, and we can give you some initial guidance because we've done a lot of cross training with the undergrad advising center. So if you have questions about GEs, finding classes, requirements, etc., and navigating the process, that's a great reason to sign in for an appointment with a study abroad advisor. But again, it's not required to meet with any advisor to apply for study abroad. If you're ready to apply for a study abroad program, we do have application workshops. We do have them on our website where there are a series of videos and can guide you through. It can be very helpful to just click on the short, 2-minute video to answer the exact question you want, or you can sign up on our website for a Zoom session and the advisor will walk through the entire application and help you along with the process. The only thing we ask you to do in advance of an application workshop is know your first choice program, because there are some nuanced differences between the programs when you're applying, and this can be more helpful for you if you just know your first choice. So right now, let's talk about program deadlines. So there are 2 deadlines for each term. Unfortunately, we have passed the Waseda, Japan, and Troskin Music deadline program in Germany. All other programs have a priority deadline of February 1st. On February 2nd, if we get enough applicants, a program may close. The vast majority of programs will remain open to March 1st, but not all programs. So just check our website on February 2nd to see which programs have remained open to March 1st deadline. Plan accordingly. Again, you can apply by the prior deadline. If not, don't worry, there is that final deadline for you for fall 2022, academic year 2022-2023. If you're super early and you're thinking about spring 2023, calendar 2023, those applications are live and open right now. You have a priority deadline of September 15th. Same thing with many programs remaining open to October 1st, but not all. If you still have questions, feel free to sign in for advising, one-on-one advising on our website, studyabroad.sfsu.edu, kind of in the middle of that page in the box section, or you can email a question to studyabroad@sfsu.edu. I'm currently the only advisor. I will do my absolute best to get back to you. I have been able to get back to everyone via email within a couple days, and I definitely have been able to see everyone who wants for advising. So feel free to sign in, but just please be patient with me. Great. As your advisor, just a quick recap. I do love that pesky word study in front of study abroad. What academic goal you pursue, major, minor, GEs, learn language. It will open up different locations in 36 countries. So definitely start checking that out and narrowing that down. You don't take my word for it. These are amazing, great locations, but I do hope you check out the opportunities to meet both virtually and in person, study abroad alumni and international students this semester, especially through IEEC. And it's never too early to start applying. It's online, it's free. It just takes a little bit of your time. Okay, well, thank you for joining today's session.